Welcome everyone to the Q&A session for our upcoming course, Reclaiming Your 6 Body Wisdom Areas, the 7-week journey to heal from trauma, release blocks, and liberate your full spectrum intuition. I'm Lisa Bonis, and I'm really excited to be hosting this hour-long Q&A call for the Shift Network, where we'll explore the teachings of Suzanne Scurlock-Durana and address questions about her upcoming 7-week video course, Reclaiming Your 6 Body Wisdom Areas, which begins Tuesday, October 10th. Later, I'll explain how you can participate in this course, even if you can't attend the live sessions, but first, I want to introduce our guest. Suzanne Scurlock-Durana is the best-selling author of Reclaiming Your Body, Healing from Trauma and Awakening to Your Body's Wisdom, and is one of the world's leading authorities on conscious awareness and its transformational impact on the healing process. After decades of perfecting her method of awakening the body's innate wisdom, Suzanne created the comprehensive Healing from the Core training curriculum in 1994. Today, it includes a robust selection of international workshops, webinars, speaking engagements, and audio programs. In just a few minutes, we're going to open up for your questions, but first, I want to welcome Suzanne, who will begin our call by leading us in an opening exploration. Welcome, Suzanne. It is so great to talk to you today.
Thanks, Lisa. It's a delight to be here. Delight to be here. So I would like to begin today by looking at how most of us are connected with our bodies, which is to say most of us have a little bit of a distorted picture about that. And so one of the questions that I was asked to speak about first is, how do I teach people how to feel what's going on in their bodies? What am I looking for? How do I help them to do that? And I think that my background as a craniosacral therapist and instructor has really guided my way home on this, because I come through the doorway of being able to feel what's actually happening in the body in any given moment, as opposed to thinking about what is happening in my body, or having an opinion about what's happening in my body, or having a thought about what that body sensation means. I actually work with people directly to begin to feel, see, taste, smell what's happening in their internal landscape. So I'd like to begin by playing with all the different channels that people can take in their inner landscape through. And the very first thing that I need to say about that is that we begin as human beings to feel what's happening inside through what I call first order sensations, or sensations that don't have any interpretation to them. So one of the ways when people close their eyes and begin to drop inside is to register, am I feeling warmth or coolness right now? Am I feeling spaciousness or heaviness? Is there a sense of things being tight or loose? Does it feel like a particular color? Which brings me to the next piece, which is that many of us are visual in nature. We actually feel and see what's going on internally at the same time. So oftentimes my students will say, well, Suzanne, what about the fact that I see images or I see color when I drop into my inner landscape? Am I doing this incorrectly? No, you're not. You actually are doing it exactly the way that speaks to you. The thing that I suggest to my students that they do, though, is that when they're noticing that beautiful fire red that's going on inside their heart, that they actually allow themselves not only to see it, but to feel that color. And what does it feel like? So they're beginning to expand their sensations, not making any judgments. That's the next piece. Bringing our curiosity, not our judgment, to whatever it is that we're noticing sensation-wise. Some people actually hear words, thoughts, sounds when they drop inside. Some people actually have a sense of taste or smell when they drop into their inner landscape. But mostly, people have a knowing of some kind that is beyond what our left brains give us on a regular basis. No, there's no reason behind it necessarily, no story, no interpretation. It is simply what I call that first order sensation. So take a moment right now, if you would, let your eyes close wherever you are. Very gently allow yourself just to follow your breath. Be curious about what your breath feels like as it goes in through your nostrils. Mm. Traveling down into your lungs. Feeling the rise and fall of your chest, your ribs, your spine as you inhale and exhale. Just being curious. Most of us don't ever slow down to just pay attention to breathing. It's much too small of something to pay attention to. But right now, we're slowing down time and we're going to pay attention to subtle shades of things that we would normally blow right by. So as you breathe, notice, just notice, be curious. Do you have more sensation in the back? Whatever your spine is supporting, being supported by. Or do you have more sensation in the front when you inhale and exhale? If you feel like there's a story here, let's say that you run up against a sense of sadness here in your chest about a recent loss. Allow yourself to drop under the story about the sadness and go right to the felt sense of sadness for you. Is it wet? Is it dry? Is it heavy? Does it feel tight? Just noticing the sensations and letting the story float away. Just being curious about what's there. Our inner landscapes have so much wisdom to impart to us. And the big piece of it is, are we listening and do we understand the language that it is imparting this wisdom through? The felt sense, the colors, textures, weight, temperature. Good, good. Yeah. You'll also notice that as you breathe and you're dropping down into your belly, maybe getting curious about what your sitting bones feel like right now on the chair or the couch where you're seated. Yeah, that I'm not telling you what to find. That would be guided imagery. And that's lovely. It's just not what we're doing. This is an exploration. And each time that you drop inside, it's going to be slightly different because this is present moment sensation. So it can change and shift moment to moment. If you feel comfortable doing so, allow yourself now to allow your awareness to drop down into your sitting bones. Is one resting more fully than the other? Or are they both resting equally on whatever is supporting you? Hmm. Good, good. Yeah. And notice what your legs feel like. Do they feel connected to your pelvis? How are your knees today? Your calves and your feet. Just noticing the sensations as you let your awareness travel down through your body. And when you get there, finally arriving at the sensation of your feet resting on the floor, inside your shoes, or your bare feet on the wood or the earth, wherever you are. Just noticing the sensations of it. Good. And taking another breath, notice how your breath feels now. Having taken maybe 4 minutes, 5 minutes, to just tune in and be present with yourself with curiosity and awareness. And when you're ready, allow your awareness to begin to include wherever you're watching me from, the screen, the sound of my voice. Allow yourself to have your inside and also include the outside at the same time. Good, good. Okay, Lisa, I am ready for questions.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Suzanne. Those of you who are listening, we have the rest of our time together to dive into your questions for Suzanne as we prepare for her upcoming course that's called Reclaiming Your Six Body Wisdom Areas, and it begins Tuesday, October 10th. And if you want to check out the website and learn more about this 7-week video course, please visit reclaimingbodywisdom.com to see the full description. So let's go ahead and get started with your questions. If you have a question for Suzanne, just go ahead and type it in and I'll be happy to read it out loud to her. And in the meantime, we've already got a few questions waiting here. So let me go ahead and get started with if we had frequently asked questions, this would be the one. And this seems to be referring to the conversation that you had with Stephen Dinan last week, where you were talking about the front of the heart and the back of the heart. So
Mhm.
the first question is, this is from Carol, who says, when you say heart, do you mean the actual physical heart or the heart chakra? And then we've got a question from Ginny, who says, do our traumas reside in the back of our heart or the front as memories? And then even Katrina says, what's the easiest way to deepen and strengthen your back of heart connection? So I know that's a lot to talk about, but I thought we'd sort of cover that whole topic in one big lump.
Okay. So just remind me if I blow on by part of it, just bring me back to it if you
Okay.
will. So
All
so
right.
number one, for many, many years as a teacher of craniosacral therapy, I am used to talking with the people in my classes about the fact that there's a cellular intelligence in the body. So in a way, all the cells of who we are hold wisdom. That's one of the cool pieces about doing the work I do, having the practice I have, and teaching what I teach, is that I have seen again and again and again and again examples of how different cellular areas in our body show us what they need, what we need, what's best for us, what will heal us. There's so many different ways that the cells of the body speak to us. So let's just talk in particular, though, about what I call the heart. As I was working with all the different cells of the body and helping people to heal, I realized that there were neighborhoods, if you will, like gatherings of cells, areas where there were particular characteristics that kept showing up. Doesn't mean it's there for 100%, but it means that this characteristic wisdom, if you want to be funny about it, the ethnic group, that lives in this neighborhood, was showing up again and again. The heart in Chinese medicine refers to our sense of inspiration with life, the fire of who we are and what makes us really want to get out of bed in the morning, right? So, what I saw in teaching all of the caregivers and healthcare professionals is that many of them were burning out due to the fact that they're pouring energy out of the front of their heart. They were just loving their world and loving what they did for a living. And at the same time, their inner well was running dry. And that was when I began my exploration of, what would it mean if I started to really drop deep, deep, deep into my heart? And I began to explore the neighborhood or the area behind the actual physical heart, which would be the nerve plexus, the spine, all the connective tissue, the ribs, everything. So if we're talking about physiology, We're really, when I speak about the heart, I'm speaking about everything from the skin in front all the way to your skin in back. And it's a neighborhood that includes the heart chakra for sure, but it's not just the heart chakra. It actually includes the heart itself physiologically. So I'll give you an example of how this looked. I just saw someone this week who was really burning out based on how he thought about his role as the eldest child in his family. And he came in and his heart, his physical heart, tight, 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 tight. And in fact, he was having heart palpitations. He was having an issue with his heart and really was concerned about it. And so when I tuned in with him, because it was so tight, he couldn't actually feel what was going on. We began to work with the sensations of it. I put a hand on the front and the back. We worked with what did his heart need, letting it begin to receive whatever it needed. And then as it slowly, 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 slowly relaxed, it was like a tight fist uncurling. And across the course of that hour, it just completely unfurled, if you will, to the point where he was actually starting to feel both the front and the back of his heart in a whole new way. And I had a hand on the back of his heart as well. So was really working with him to understand that he needed to be able to feel the back of his heart and to take care of himself. One of my advanced students, Sherry Owens, put it this way to me. I loved it. She said, Suzanne, it's as though the front of the heart is about loving others and the way that we have compassion for the world. The back of the heart is about loving ourselves. And I said, yeah. And it's like the deep well that feeds our heart and our desire to help people. Most of us, however, are raised with an entirely different paradigm. The paradigm is you give until you drop, you crawl home, you refill, doing whatever you do, and then you go back out into the world until you give until you drop again. The paradigm that I see, which is, by the way, the only one I can see that works in our world today, is that we must pay attention to the deep well of our heart. So that means not only can you feel your backbone in any given moment, is it mobile? Can you actually move it, shift it, play with it? Or is it pretty numb back there? Yeah. And not only that, but do you have rules? Do you have limiting beliefs about taking care of yourself? Do you feel worthy of taking care of yourself? Or is your worth dependent on the people you take care of? And if you do it successfully, then you're a good person. If you don't, you got problems. If you're operating from that kind of a belief structure, you're on your way to burnout because it means that you don't feel as though you have the right to take care of yourself. And it's not selfishness, it's actually really taking care of yourself. So that's a very different paradigm. Yeah. Now, let me see. What else was in your question, Lisa? I think I might have left something out here.
It looks like one question was, do our traumas reside in the back of our heart or the front as memories? And the other one was, what's the best way to deepen and strengthen the back of your heart connection?
Okay, so I did answer the how do we deepen and strengthen the back of the heart. I do it by movement, I do it by breath, I do it by awareness. I do it by looking at what my limiting beliefs are about taking care of myself. Those are all ways that we're going to be talking a whole lot more about in the module about the heart next week, actually. And the other piece is that trauma can reside anywhere in the body. It doesn't have to be the front, the back, the sides. The interesting piece about working with this gentleman this past week, he, by the way, went into his cardiologist hours after I saw him, and all of his cardiac symptoms were gone. He came back the following week, or the following 2 days later, and we worked with some residual trauma that was there in the bottom of his heart. Physically, the lower part of his heart still felt heavy. So we had a whole dialogue about that. He let go of it. And when he left, his chest was open. He was feeling very present and having a really good time. And when I checked in with him recently, he said, I feel like a new human being. Number one, my thinking is clearer. It's like I'm getting more blood flow to my head. And my chest is open. I can breathe. I have so much more ease in everything that I'm doing. So These kinds of things, good craniosacral therapy, breath, movement, sound, all can help open the back of the heart and can help to mobilize the tissue around the trauma so that it can start to slowly, when it's ready, integrate and get more and more diffuse until it lets go. Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. That was a lot of great information. We've got somebody who typed in on the webcast after you did your opening exercise. And they say, I noticed during your opening exercise that I feel like my back is unprotected, as if I expect to be attacked if I let down my guard. What does that mean?
I don't know. I would ask them what it means because everybody's process with their body is going to be slightly different. Lisa, you and I had a slight discussion before we started about, does one area of the body mean the same thing to every person? No. But when someone feels vulnerable in their back, that would be a very clear signal that you may not be fully inhabiting your back. And so it feels scary to even feel it. It feels very scary. And we're actually going to talk next week about the 5 different body myths that keep people from embodying. And one of them is that if I embody here in my back, all I'm going to feel is vulnerability and pain. I'm not going there. That's just too much. So what I do when this comes up and I'm teaching someone or treating someone is to really sit with, what does your backbone have to say about this sense of vulnerability? And can you allow your awareness to move even more deeply into the bones of your backbone, into your skin? Yeah, all the way back, just resting back, allowing yourself to be physically supported as you do so. So you're not having to stiffen your back and hold, if you will, the back's version of a stiff upper lip. You want to be able to hold on. Oftentimes, when people feel this way, there's a sense that nobody has their back. And that can be a belief that needs to be explored because it's an important one. And many of us over responsibility takers in our lives feel as though we are the only one that has our own back. And so we have to really gird our loins and tighten our spine in order to feel safe. Unfortunately, that's exhausting and it's actually not very effective. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks. That was a great answer. It helped me, and I wasn't even the one with the question, so thank you. Um,
Okay.
uh, Here's another question. This one doesn't have a name. It says it would seem more difficult to tune into certain areas of the body for those with physical discomfort, for example, such as listening to the gut for people who have chronic stomach pain or tension. Are there techniques to help with such chronic stress?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that when you look at the 5 different body myths that we're going to talk about next week, one of the pieces we're looking at is, what keeps you from really being able to tune in? Pain is a biggie for most of us. It keeps us from wanting to drop into our gut. Limiting beliefs. It's not safe to be in my gut. It's not safe to be in my back. Is another thing that keeps us. Culturally, culturally, you may have been taught that the only way to be okay, to be up to par, would be to have flat, tight abs. So your gut is always tight and tense and feeling like there's not enough blood flow through it. You might actually be so educated that you keep second guessing your gut. So these are all things that we're going to be talking about next week, but all of them make it a little more problematic initially to begin to hold and be with kindness and care, the parts of ourselves that we're locked out of. And we will be talking about that as well. How do we come to the parts of ourselves? If you, for instance, are sitting here right now with a sense of tension in your gut, just gently place your hands right on your gut with kindness. And just let the warmth of your hands radiate into that area where you might be feeling tension or pain. And notice what it shows you when you go in with no agenda, just cradling it and loving it and saying, okay, I'm here. I'm listening now. I may not have been before, but I am now.
Wow, that's very powerful. Thank you.
Mm.
We've got a question here from Renee who says, I've noticed that inner work, higher awareness, or shifts in consciousness affect the body in a way that almost feels like detoxing. Can you explain the mechanics behind this and how best to support the body while this is happening?
I would need to have a definition for detoxing. Um, yes, higher consciousness, expanded states of awareness, and embodiment all have a particular effect, not the same effect, but they can have a particular effect on the body. So I remember, Lisa, when I was very first doing some of my deep meditation work years ago, and it was a meditation where I was not really focusing on my body. I was focusing on expanded states of awareness, of higher consciousness. And I found that because I didn't have an anchor in my own body, that I started to feel like a helium balloon that was taking off. And I would get to a certain place in my expanded awareness, and I could feel my insides gripping. And I couldn't figure out what that was about. Well, as I've worked with this process, I realized that you don't want to be going in a direction with expanded awareness that's out of the body. You want to be doing expanded awareness, or I call deepening awareness, that actually includes your body, because then you have the foundation and the grounding to be able to hold whatever shows up. So I actually don't feel a whole lot of detoxing going on when I do the kinds of meditation and embodiment practice, the core embodiment practice that I teach doesn't generally have a detox to it. Probably because we set the intention for that integration to happen at a pace that you can handle and in a manner that is integratable by you in this moment.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. And if you're just joining us, we're here with Suzanne Scurlock-Durana, learning about her upcoming course, and it's called Reclaiming Your Six Body Wisdom Areas, and it begins Tuesday, October 10th. And you can log on to reclaimingbodywisdom.com for all the details and to register. So let's get back to the questions because there's lots of good stuff here. This one, again, with no name. The question is, I understand that the course will be about sensing, tuning yourself to your body, and I wonder whether the course addresses sensations we sometimes feel that are not our own, but those mirrored from others. I'm sensitive to emotions in others. However, I'm not always able to distinguish what is mine and what is from the other person. I don't know if I have an on off button and whether it's always on or if it's possible to turn off.
Actually, I love this question. This is actually one of my favorite topics. I'll try and not go completely geeky on you here, but one of one of the things that I say is that most of us don't consider our empathy, our ability to actually feel and track what's going on for other people, as an asset. Most of us see it as a liability because we're not taught as children or even as adults in this culture how to have healthy boundaries so that you know where you stop and the rest of the world begins. When you know how to refill your own energy reservoir deeply, fully, then when you're in the presence of someone else, you register, like through your inner radar, that that person's having a pain in their heart or a clutch in their gut or a headache, whatever it is, you register it on the screen of your awareness, but it doesn't go inside of you. So you don't end up walking away with it. You also, when you register that, you have a choice about saying, do I want to take that in or not? Meaning, if you're in a space where there's a lot of tension, you can choose to not take it in and maybe even make a choice to leave that circumstance as quickly as possible. Or if you're with your beloved, you can choose to let that person in and to connect with a healthy boundary. So, in each of those circumstances, very, very important, A, to know how to track what's yours. What does it feel like in my own inner landscape? We're going to be speaking about this again in the 7 modules. We're going to be working with what are the characteristics of my inner landscape, your inner landscape. Each one of us has our own basic characteristics that we kind of see day after day, although there will be changes in it from moment to moment, from each present moment. And then when you're in the presence of someone else, if you suddenly show something shows up on your screen, you don't even have to ask yourself, is that mine or theirs? Because you get, oh, this is not mine. This tension I just suddenly felt wasn't there 2 minutes ago before that person walked in the room. Not mine. So then you can make a much better decision about it. And we'll talk a lot more about the details of this in that 7 module class.
Okay, great. I'm looking forward to that. I've already signed up for the course, by the way, so I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
that specific conversation.
I
We've
think
got a
I'm going to
question
be
here
there.
from, what's that?
I said, I think I'm going to be there too.
Well, good. That'll make it that much more interesting. We've got a question here from Marina, who wants to know what to do when different parts of the body are giving different signals or messages.
Well, actually, Marina, different parts of the body do give different messages or signals. So, for instance, your heart is going to be basically signaling to you when something is really inspiring to you. You really love it. It's just right for you. The gut is going to give you a signal that says, well, that may really look cool, but okay. So let's talk about this for just a minute, Marina. Let's say, for instance, that you are someone who falls in love easily, and the problem is you keep falling in love with people that aren't really right for you. Okay, so you fall in love. Your heart says, "Oh, this is wonderful." And when you drop into your gut, though, the gut goes, oh, don't jump in yet. Let's give this person a couple of weeks. Let's just see whether this person actually follows through on what they say they're going to do, whether they really get back to you in a timely manner when you extend yourself to them. Do they show up for you? Are they honest? Rather than just falling head over heels in love, which of course the heart can do and has been known to do. And then, so that here, your gut and your heart can be having two very different signals. I trust my gut when I get that signal from my gut, and I will just wait and see. And then my heart makes much wiser decisions when I do that. And as I talked about in that first interview with Stephen, we have different neighborhoods, different characteristic wisdom, depending on what part of your body you're talking about. So the pelvis is going to give you the read on whether or not you have enough energy to do something. And that's the engine of the body. So if you're really tapped out, or you're healing from something, or you got too many things on your plate, your pelvis might just say to you, no, no, not now, not now. I'll give you an example of this. I was just working with someone recently, and she has been going to online dating sites. She's, back in the dating world. And she also recently had to have a procedure, physical procedure that she's healing from. And she was enjoying the dating process until after this physical surgery procedure. And she woke up in the middle of the night one night, and her pelvis, in dialogue with her gut and her heart, said very, very clearly to her, we need all of our energy right now to heal from this surgery. There is no energy to put into online dating right now. Just suspend it for a couple months. Let yourself heal, which I thought was just fascinating that this came just bloop, right from all of those three areas in concert with each other, because they're meant to be integrated and speaking with each other all the time. That's when we get the best answers. That's when things really work best for us, is when the inspiration of the heart is connected to the gut instinct of the gut, and the engine of the pelvis, the clarity and the steadiness of your bones, the feet and legs activating and getting things moving, and then the brain, that wonderful prefrontal cortex, being able to strategize and map make for whatever decision we're trying to make.
Okay, great. Yeah, here's a question from Meryl, who wants to know, will there be a class module on feet trauma and the spiritual aspects of that?
Do you know, we will be talking about trauma in general throughout all of the modules. On the module that has to do with feet and legs, we will definitely be working with that concept. There are many different spiritual principles that might show up with foot trauma. And when you look in my book, Reclaiming Your Body, you'll see that each of the wisdom areas, right down the side column of each, the beginning of each of those chapters, has all of the things that we say, the idioms that we say in our language, in English, about what can go wrong with the feet and what the feet give us. Being left without a leg to stand on, having your feet knocked out from under you. I can't even remember right now, but there's some great ones, just column after column of things that we know as human beings, but we forget. We forget. And there are actual physical, spiritual, emotional ramifications of trauma anywhere in the body, but particularly for the feet, because that's our connector to the earth. And the earth and its gravitational field is one of the biggest resources that we have as human beings. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Okay, great. Thank you. We've got another question in here, again with no name. People are feeling shy. This one says, how do you know if your bodily sensations or reactions are really your mind using your body as a projection screen? Meaning your own stuff you make up in your head is not necessarily accurate, so you feel highly stressed in an environment or around someone who really isn't doing anything to you. Do you ever trust yourself enough to not trust your brain and ego and how it affects the body?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And I talk about, we'll be talking about this in the third module where we talk about the gut and gut wisdom. It's very, very interesting that the sensation that in the present moment that the gut gives you about whether something's right or wrong, that particular sense has a very different feel to it than if you have a mental process that's going on like a gerbil in a cage, going round and round and round. All those old anxious worries that and the ways that we talk to ourselves. I was just reading something the other day by another author, and she was saying how we think about our bodies definitely influences the care we give and the amount of connection we feel to our bodies. And I could not agree with that more. So it can affect your sense of connection, but the whole process of this core embodiment helps you to step beyond that and start to be able to feel at an authentic core level what really is going on here. Am I safe in this moment? Is this a moment I should really be looking forward to and jump into, even though it doesn't make any logical sense? Hope that
Okay,
helps.
thank you. Before we go on, we have time for a few more questions, but before we take those, I want to share some helpful details about the course itself. Again, it's called Reclaiming Your Six Body Wisdom Areas. And this is going to be a really awesome, life changing 7-week journey under Suzanne's expert guidance, where you'll discover how to activate your body's capacity for dissolving blocks and traumas so you thrive on every level physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And the 7-week video course takes place on Tuesdays at noon Pacific time. And again, that starts Tuesday, October 10th. And if you can't join us live, that's not a problem. You won't miss the teachings. You'll receive audio and video recordings, transcripts, and all course handouts on your course homepage. And also, the Shift Network offers a no-risk money-back guarantee on our courses, giving you a full 2 weeks until October 24th, in this case, to make sure that it's a really good fit. And as an added option, all participants are welcome to connect in a private Facebook community group so you can stay connected with one another. Also, everyone who registers receives the Reclaiming Your Six Body Wisdom Areas bonus collection. First, you'll receive the first chapter of Suzanne's ebook, Reclaiming Your Body, Healing from Trauma and Awakening to Your Body's Wisdom. Then you'll get an audio interview with Suzanne and Paul Samuel Dolman entitled, What Matters Most? Next, you'll receive an audio package from Suzanne called Basic Relaxation and Energizing Exercises. And when you register by midnight Pacific on Wednesday, October 4th, that's today, you'll receive an additional bonus gift, the audiobook version of Suzanne's previous book, Full Body Presence, Learning to Listen to Your Body's Wisdom. So before we go any further, Suzanne, what are you most looking forward to sharing in your upcoming course?
For me, I find it fascinating I feel the lights go on for people when they begin to drop in and get what I mean by core embodiment. Not just thinking about it, but actually having a felt sense, having an ability to truly refill their inner energy reservoir on a regular basis. And in doing so, be able to navigate in their world with more joy, with more pleasure, and to make wiser decisions in their life, acting from what means most to them at a soul level, as opposed to just reacting to what people are demanding of them externally. So I love this. This is the joy in my life is being able to share this with everyone, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay, terrific. Wow. Well, let's get back to the questions because they just keep coming in. We've got one from, let's see, is there a name on this? This is from somebody with the initials JL who says, does this course help you heal from CPTSD? And I believe the C stands for chronic, possibly?
It could. Let's pretend like it does. Um,
Okay.
and PTSD is basically a chronic condition in most cases, and it is absolutely a very effective tool for healing from PTSD, from the effects of the nervous system being hypervigilant. And as the last questioner asked, how do I know the difference between what my gut is saying and what my head is telling me? Like someone who has PTSD sees danger everywhere because there's so many triggers that keep going off around them. One of the only really core ways to change that pattern is to learn how to feel your own internal landscape and to reclaim it, to begin to hold the parts of your body that are frozen with fear or anxiety, to begin to be able to drop back into your bones and feel the steadiness that resides there and the clarity that shows up so you can see what's really happening versus what your poor hypervigilant amygdalae are telling you is happening. The amygdala are a part of the brain that register when something might be dangerous, except if you have PTSD, it registers a lot of things. Uh, a lot of sticks look like snakes to someone with PTSD or with that level of hypervigilance. So the capacity to drop below your neck, the capacity to reclaim felt sense in your body in a safe, integratable way is the path home from PTSD. So, yes, it is something that's very helpful. The more trauma you've had, the more carefully you need to walk that journey for yourself. And the way that I set it up is, we set the intention that you're going to do this at a pace that works for you. It's a layer by layer process, but the skills are all basically the same. And once you learn those skills, you can begin to monitor yourself, dropping in, noticing when something's coming up, noticing when you need to ground and feel your feet again, when you need to do a breath that's calming, whatever you need to do to bring yourself back to the present moment versus the past fear of something that has happened before. And I'll leave the rest of it for when we get into the modules. But yes, it will be addressed.
Okay, terrific. Thanks. We've got a couple of different questions. I won't read them all, but just in general, people are asking, is there a meaning to like the left side of the body and the right side of the body?
Mhm. It depends on what teacher you're talking to. I studied metaphysics for 15 years when I was very first on my own inner journey. And some teachers believe that the right side has to do with the masculine and the left has to do with the feminine, unless, of course, you're left handed and then it reverses. And the same thing happens when you step into a group and you're supposed to hold hands at the end of the circle. Some people believe your right hand's supposed to be up and your left hand's supposed to be down. Well, what I've seen is that whatever you believe about your body is basically how it begins to show up. So I would say, look at your spiritual beliefs and look at what it feels like inside. Look at what it feels like. Which side of you is dominant? Which side of you is more active? Which side of you is more receptive? and receives and feels things more sensitively. Just noticing for yourself what's going on here. That is actually much more important than what someone may have taught you about, well, this means that or that means this. Do you understand what I'm saying there? Does that make sense, Lisa?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. It's almost like with dream interpretation, you can look in a book and look up what a train means, or you
Right.
can go by what a train means to you. So yeah, it's sort of like
Exactly.
interpreting dreams. You're interpreting your own body signals.
Well, and I will say that dreaming actually often has a lot of correlation with what your inner landscape is talking about. So dreams are the same way. That you're exactly right. So when your Aunt Helen shows up in a dream, it's not what major matriarchal figures mean because that's what it said in a book. It's what who was Aunt Helen to you? And let's have a conversation with her and see what she was trying to tell you in that dream. What's the new information? So it is about moment by moment. What is the meaning for you in this moment? Yeah. And that's not, by the way, that's not to disrespect any of the wise elders who got people to thinking about the fact that if you've got problems in your knee, it might have to do with a sense of being cut off at the knees by something that's gone on emotionally. That's an important piece to understand the emotional impact of things. But it could also be that you have a hypothyroid condition and your ligaments and tendons are weak and you're not exercising correctly and you don't have the right supplements, so you keep injuring your knee. It could be that as well, or it could be a combination of the two. And I'm really big on saying yes and as opposed to it's either or, one or the other. Yeah?
Okay, great. That makes so much
Yeah.
sense. Thank you. And sort of as a follow up to that, we do have people asking us for specific illnesses. Like, for example, we have somebody asking, "What is cancer often saying to those who have it?" And another person saying, "With osteoporosis, what are my bones trying to tell me?" Can you address those two topics, and then perhaps just sort of a big picture about what illnesses
Mm.
mean?
So cancer is number one, there's so many different kinds of cancer. And they can come from environmental toxins, they can come from nutrient deficiencies, extremely high inflammation levels in the body due to stress and PTSD, a combination of all of those. There are many, many different kinds of cancers, many, many different origins. In some cases, the cancer is actually trying to signal to the person to say, pay attention over here. You need to be taking care of yourself in this way or that way. Sometimes cancer is just cancer. And so it's important to be open to all of those things, but there's no one meaning to what cancer represents for everyone because everyone's unique and different. We do know now that our environment that we're living in, from the electromagnetic fields to the food we're eating, to the air we're breathing, to the toxins, the herbicides and pesticides that we ingest, all of these things have a very clear effect on the cells of our body. And when you take that and add to it the inflammation that it causes, and then you add three or four other stressors in someone's life, you have a parent dying and a sick child and whatever. Now suddenly you've got a body that's breaking down due to the number of things that are happening. So I do my very best not to jump to conclusions, but to help each person figure out what's the meaning for you. What's the meaning for you? And what is your body trying to tell you? One of the cool things about working with this core embodiment process that I talk about in Reclaiming Your Body and that I'll be talking about in these same 7 modules is that once you are really embodied, you can ask your body which chemo is going to be most effective. The doctor's telling me A, B, C, or a combination of them, right? So you can actually say to your tissue, which one is going to be best for me? And particularly if I've got my hands on somebody doing a cranial session, you can feel the tissue recoil at one and expand out with another. Okay, same thing if you're not doing chemo, you're doing supplements, you're doing oxygen, whatever you're doing. The body knows, the body has a wisdom about what it needs in order to heal. And the capacity to tune in any given moment is a really key piece. Okay? Am I making sense on that front?
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And what was the second question? I'm sorry, I've lost it now.
It was about osteoporosis. What are
Ah,
your bones trying to tell you?
so osteoporosis, again, I'll say the same thing that I said for cancer. It can be from your diet, it can be from your genetics, it can be from lack of exercise, it can be any number of different things. But really, what we see with osteoporosis is dry, brittle bones that break easily. Now, women as they age and men as they age have thinner bones naturally, but they should be supple and juicy and not dry and brittle. So, doesn't necessarily mean that you have bones that aren't healthy if your bones are thinner as you age, but you want them to be strong. So, what kind of exercise, what kind of diet, all of those things make a big difference with osteoporosis. And sometimes osteoporosis means I live my entire life outside of my body, paying attention to everybody else. But what I'm not paying attention to is the core of me, my bones. And in doing so, the energy of my bones gets depleted. So that might be the emotional message. And the emotional message, the healing then is drop inside. Let's drop right on into your bones and see what they're asking for. What do they need in order to be healthy? Oftentimes, the emotional component of what they need might be to stop accommodating everyone else and to start to listen to your own insides, deep inside, so that you know what you need. Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Let's take a question here from Mary. Mary says, how do you support yourself with kindness and compassion instead of criticism when you're feeling resistance reconnecting to a wisdom center?
Well, the thing I say when I'm teaching someone how to reconnect with a wisdom center is you don't have to like it. This might be an area of your body that you've been fighting with all of your body, all of your life. It might be um, that your heart has repeatedly done what you thought is betrayal, or that your pelvis has continually gotten you into trouble, or whatever it is. You don't have to like that part of your body initially, but the gentle compassion that you would hold if you were cradling a puppy or a kitten or a newborn, sleeping newborn. Any of these you can bring to mind and feel what it would feel like in your body. That's what we're really going for. Can you bring loving kindness, compassion, tenderness, and no agenda as you begin to reclaim parts that are frozen and scared and that you're locked out of? Yeah. We'll talk a lot more about that as we go along. And there's a whole audio section on it that goes with reclaiming your body that we will probably be diving into at some point. So, yeah, look for it.
Okay, terrific. Thanks. Let's take this question here. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this name correctly, so I apologize in advance. It looks like it's pronounced Manon. And the question is, how do I know which wisdom area I have to tune into? And don't they all work together?
So, the question is not, how do I know? The question is, which one pops out at you, Menon? And yes, every single one of them are meant to work. They're all meant to work together. It is like a wisdom council or a medicine circle in indigenous traditions. You're meant to listen to every single part of who you are. If you look at the physiology of the physical body, we know that things work best when every cell is speaking and adjusting to every other cell in its communication. If there's a little too much over here, it balances out with the little too little over there. When things are blocked, when you're locked out of them, when they're compartmentalized, when there's stasis, there's no flow of energy through the body, that's when we get into trouble physically in our bodies. But it's also when we get into trouble with the wisdom areas because they are not meant to operate alone. One of the things we're going to be talking about in each of the different modules is what happens when your heart goes rogue and is trying to run its own show without any of the rest of the body. What happens when the gut goes rogue? What about when the pelvis goes rogue? What about, you got the idea here? So each one of these areas, if we only operate from that area, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Let's take one last quick one. Um, This is, I don't know if you can answer this quickly, but we'll give it a try. This is from Carol, who says, can arthritis be indicative of your wisdom being closed off?
Maybe, maybe, maybe not. Maybe arthritis has to do with a gene getting turned on, and then many stressors in your life, and then your diet not being quite right. And then it could also have to do with overdoing things. It could have to do with the way in which you see yourself. There are many different messages that I've helped people listen to when they're dealing with arthritis. And each one is just slightly different depending on that unique person's history, their gene pool, their life, the stressors in their life. Yeah.
Okay, wow. Well, this has just been a fascinating conversation. I want to thank our viewers for all of your terrific questions. We couldn't have the conversation without you, so thank you.
Yeah.
Reclaiming Your Six Body Wisdom Areas starts Tuesday, October 10th. And again, you can visit reclaimingbodywisdom.com to learn more or to register. And also, I want to thank you, Suzanne, for sharing your expertise with us. Before we go, do you have any final words for our viewers? Anything you want to say about the course?
Really, just to say that I'm excited. For me, helping people to come home to their innate wisdom is what has been my MO for many, many years. And I'm very, very excited to have the opportunity to reach out to more people through the Shift Network. So thank you, Lisa.
Well, thank you again, Suzanne. We'll just keep thanking each other. It's been just a pleasure learning from you today. I'm personally fascinated by this topic, and I think that this is going to be a really great class. So once again, I want to thank everyone who joined us today, and I want to thank you, Suzanne.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
All right. So thank you for all of us for I'm stuttering now. Thank you to all of you who joined us today. And on behalf of all of us at the Shift Network, I wish you well and look forward to having you on this course or perhaps another one in the future. Have a great day, everyone.